You're standing in the center of a massive stone arena. The sand beneath your feet is stained dark red. Above you, 50,000 citizens of the world's greatest superpower are screaming for your blood. Across the arena floor, a heavy iron gate slowly cranks upward. You have no armor, no weapon. You aren't a gladiator, and you didn't commit a violent crime. You're a baker, or a weaver, and the only reason you're here is because of a single word you refuse to say. For the first 300 years of its existence, being a Christian in the Roman Empire wasn't just a religious choice, it was a capital offense. If you were caught, the state turned your death into a public, theatrical horror show. By every metric of military history, this extreme violence should have crushed the movement in its infancy, but it did the exact opposite. How did a small group of ordinary, unarmed people outlast a systematic campaign of terror by the most brutal empire on Earth? The answer turns out to be a high-stakes evolution of survival strategies, because depending on the year you woke up, Rome was playing two entirely different games to wipe you out. For the first 200 years, Hollywood movies get it completely wrong. Christians weren't constantly running through the streets from imperial secret police. In the year 112 CE, a Roman governor named Pliny the Younger sent a panicked letter to the Emperor Trajan. He had arrested a few Christians but had no idea what the official law was because there was no empire-wide law. Emperor Trajan's reply set the survival blueprint for the next 2 centuries. He laid down a strict policy. Concurrendi non sunt, they are not to be actively sought out. During this first phase, persecution was purely local and sporadic. Rome didn't care about your personal theology. They cared about public order. But whenever a plague struck, an economic collapse loomed, or a drought hit, the superstitious Roman public blamed the people who refused to sacrifice to the traditional civic gods. To survive this era, Christians used the secrecy protocol. They decentralized completely. They didn't build obvious public temples. Instead, they met in private, crowded apartments operating under the guise of the Collegium, which was a standard Roman neighborhood burial club. They verified each other using secret codes. If a stranger drew a single curved line in the dirt while talking to you, and you drew the matching curved line to complete the fish, the ichthys, you instantly knew you were safe. If you didn't complete it, you just looked like a normal citizen doodling in the dirt. If you kept your head down and your network tight, you could live an entire life without ever seeing the inside of a prison. But in the year 249 CE, the rules of the game completely changed. By the mid-3rd century, the Roman Empire was collapsing. It was hit by civil wars, economic ruin, and a devastating plague all at once. The new emperor, Decius, decided that localized tolerance was over. He believed the gods were destroying Rome because Christians were multiplying unchecked. He didn't just order executions, he launched the world's first systematic bureaucratic inquisition. Decius issued an imperial edict. Every single man, woman, and child in the empire was forced to march down to their local marketplace, step before a government magistrate, and perform a pagan sacrifice to the gods. If you complied, you were handed a physical signed paper certificate called a Libellus. It was your ancient ID card. If a Roman soldier stopped you on the street and you couldn't produce your Libellus proving you had sacrificed, you were instantly thrown in chains. The low-profile strategy was dead. You couldn't hide in plain sight anymore. Every single Christian was forced to make a choice within days. So how did the underground network survive a total bureaucratic dragnet? They adapted 3 distinct survival mechanics. 1. The Great Flight. Thousands of Christians packed their bags and vanished completely from the tax rolls, fleeing into the trackless Egyptian deserts, establishing the world's very first monasteries. 2. The Black Market Loophole. Wealthier Christians realized that Roman magistrates were deeply corrupt. They began paying massive bribes to government officials to slip them forged Libellus certificates under the table, allowing them to keep their lives without compromising their faith. 3. The weaponization of martyrdom. For those who couldn't flee or bribe, they leaned directly into the execution. The Roman Empire used public executions as a tool of absolute psychological dominance. They expected tears, begging, and terror. But the Christians broke the system's psychology. Instead of screaming for mercy, ancient accounts record that Christians regularly walked into the arenas singing hymns. They smiled at their executioners. They viewed dying for their faith not as a defeat, but as a victory. This completely backfired on the state. The public didn't see broken, terrified criminals. They saw supernatural, unyielding courage. The ancient writer Tertullian famously wrote a warning directly to the Roman authorities. The oftener we are mown down by you, The more in number we grow, the blood of Christians is seed. Pagan onlookers left the arenas deeply shaken. They went home asking themselves a dangerous question. What could possibly be so real that it makes an ordinary person face a lion with a smile on their face? In the year 303 CE, Emperor Diocletian launched the final, most brutal empire-wide purge to wipe out Christianity forever. He burned their books, tore down their hidden meeting places, and executed thousands. 10 years later, Diocletian's empire-wide dragnet collapsed under its own weight. The public grew tired of the endless slaughter of their peaceful neighbors, and after Diocletian abdicated the throne, a civil war raged the empire, and Constantine the Great seized power and became emperor. The new emperor, Constantine, legalized the religion completely. The Roman Empire possessed the greatest armies, the most wealth, and the most brutal torture devices the ancient world had ever seen. But they lost the war against a group of unarmed citizens. They lost because you can't conquer a people who aren't afraid of what happens after you kill them. Today, the grand palaces of the Roman emperors are ancient hollow ruins visited by tourists. But the movement that started in those sweaty, hidden Roman apartments is still here. We live in a world where we constantly chase security, comfort, and the approval of the systems around us. But 1,700 years ago, everyday people proved that real freedom doesn't come from safety. It comes from finding something so true that even the jaws of a Roman lion can't take it away from you.